Welcome to KMTV. Today we are coming to discuss something important. As you know, we always give you the best information. So I want you to stick and stay and follow our story. The story is about rent in Ghana. When you come to Ghana, it is difficult for one to get a room to rent and stay in. All because the charges are too outrageous. How much they charge for rent or for a room, it takes much. This has made KMTV to interact with the department in Ghana to find out some of the laws and guidelines and even as to policies governing how rent should be done. Are the people cooperating? If they are not, what is really causing that? And we interacted with the officials as well as the public to also find how they also see the issue. According to rent control, one is supposed to give rent not to a tenant not exceeding 6 months. But the landlords and landladies also disagree with this law and argue that if one supposed not to rent his or her facility to a tenant in advance not exceeding 6 months, why property rate government also collect 6 months? And after all, it is not government that has invested. It is a private investment. A lot goes into it. So if you are saying that one should rent or give his or her facility to somebody to rent not exceeding 6 months, then it is also not going to help them. And they spoke to KMTV. Some also argue that they support the government decision whereby they are complying with the laws in Ghana concerning renting. According to some of them, they say that when you go outside Ghana, even in Africa, a country like Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, that is Ivory Coast, and the rest, rent is done not exceeding 6 months. So if you violate as a landlord, you are going to face the law. But here in Ghana, one charges or collect an advance more than 6 months. Some go even beyond 3 years. So when it happens so, it affects the individuals. Therefore, they are arguing that we need to also make sure that the law. So without taking what the officer said and the public, let us go and listen to what when we contacted the officials and the public to see what they are saying. So if you are watching, this is KMTV, and I will indulge you to follow our page and subscribe to us, comment, share for somebody to also get this information. Rent agent, people who serve as intermediary between the landlords and the agent, their fee supposed not to be 10% but 5%. Is it not extortion? So we want us to discuss this. All these issues, the rent officer spoke about it. So I am going to leave them to speak without any interruption. We are all going to listen, and after which we will comment. It contains a lot of information, and I will seek your indulgence to speak. So some of them spoke in Twi, but the officials speak in English. They make an say rent control for their basse. It was say Ghana, Yamrana, a far quiet faso, a did a high no. So they might that my high a year a friend say advance na any kwan say bro busumi nsia. Ebinom so say aban I didn't know kasa asem no because wo enyo no pace card my made see dan. It say obi ba behind me dan na me the man more than 6 months and a year 2 years wo how they say inti rent for no say any kwan say yen sa but landlords and landladies in which say no aban wo kasa yes no nya adwen inti sa asem wo inti itu anamon ene call bono rent office ne enum kudi nkom ne ebusa omo say omo emra no say na de na eka e de fa kwan a efa so de my dan ma ahan nhihye be na wo ho ntutuye be na wo ho aban hihye ne say ena ewiye no e call mountain so ne amanfo okudi nketa ho ne ebusa omo so say ena aban mu penifo eka e de fa kwan a wo fa so de dan ma ahan boso so madwen ene say send ebe ya yem pese ye be interrupt no yebeti ye officials no ebi wana landlord no bia landlord ana mom did dama hand bia bam no mo so do madwen kiraba kan ne wonu se also betimi do madwen kiraba comment section ho ye be kan amobia ate aha e KMTV osomfo no akwa magina kwasini ye hye obose dan ne dan din sem papa esombo e de bebro enti.
My name is Amu Matilda, and I am the Regional Officer for Bono Region Rent Control Department. The Rent Control Department is an establishment which was instituted in 1963 by the government of Ghana. It's an institution that is set to regulate the rental space. When I say the rental space, we have the jurisdiction over renting issues in Ghana. Our core mandate is to promote by way of education and by way of prosecution. We use the Rent Act 1963 Act 220, and then we use the Rent Regulation, and then we also use the PNDC law. These are the laws that back our operations as a department. And the Rent Act was enacted in 1963. It is in this act that all the laws governing our operations are set in. Now, every nation has its governing rules, like the Constitution and other laws that govern institutions. In our case, the Rent Act 1963 Act 220. It specifies the responsibilities of landlord, responsibilities of a tenant, the rights of the tenant, and then the rights of the landlord. This is all in the Rent Act 1963. Now, when it comes to renting, because your property is on the land of the Republic, you must abide by these laws. If you decide not to rent out your property, you are not under the umbrella of the law. But once you decide to do business with your property, you are governed by the law. And so when you rent out, the law states that you must issue a tenancy agreement and a rent card. This rent card is a statutory document. It means it is backed by law. It is mandatory for every landlord to acquire a rent card for their tenants. This rent card specifies the tenant's name, their contacts, their occupation, their emergency contact numbers, even their passport pictures, so that when something happens, this person can be traced to your house. These are some of the information that is needed by landlord in the rent card. Also, the rent card also provides information about the landlord because it is two, it is pair. The tenant will have one, the landlord will have one. It will specify the name the landlord the time requirements that he has given, if it's chamber hall, if it's single room, if it's a shop, you have to specify how much is the recoverable rent. It means how much do you charge per month. It is stated in the rent card. And then the period, date commencement, and then date that it ends. And then the period for the agreement. If it's 6 months, there's a portion that you fill out. If it's 300 cedis per month and it starts in May, you are going to write 300 cedis for the next 3 months so that the tenant will keep their own and then landlord will keep their own. This tenancy agreement allows changes as time goes on. If there is an increment, and that increment will have to be authorized by rent control, because then you apply an increment, you come and make assessment of your premises, see the additional cost that you've incurred on the premises, being it maintenance, so that we can adjust the price. You go back to the rent card and make those adjustments. Being said, the tenancy agreements do not make provision for these adjustments, but the rent card gives you room for you to make these adjustments.
Me ma nchire kakra mo fa ho se things ya shamra sem produce duru ba bi a ma yo ho ma ya ba fa ti mo nyina nyo mo dan ni sa dan ka wu wasi na wa ti ya for 6 months to year na ti ma da ti obi a wa national service na say we police na say we prison officer but what I say but obi o no akwa to bank as we call if you can say you ma dan be at baby and mo be dem some man the best especially national service for no because in the few man yeah mutitim diama adan han ne adan pe no eno no congested say enhyan na je enim but yem pa infontem bi o mo dwene ade bi mo dwene ade bi a e ba matimomfo no e de ahokyere ne e kan say as a pressure baba beto nipa so cause ama fi wura bebre a o ma dwene say o mo adan wo but o mo fanyere e ma ahan an de abare betima di mra na wa hye no so but ade ba ko aban say e be mo atimomfo no especially obi obepe national service. What I say, Obi Obi national service. Numbers of weapon way ya. Na catch them and see me dying, na catch them and father and Mabusu means ya. My mother is was what I see because abandoning support to be a man, but near Passy, you know, you will say. Abandoning sissy a damn teacher for nurses, more being baby in the antenna. Non fast sanction near the end to walk, but the bus are quiet me boatman for the bus anonym. So, what shall some and what's it done be? But what you media? None are done be a Mabusu means ya, and so far. Ever my few what is the reform? Going to me, I'm down body. The on more school down behind just down. Marketing contumely. I come a bullet to punch. A pebble shape there also. I mean, says can uncle to have with sending a banana the image. So almost almost business no almost never been for multi let me am be a dying hand because my ways if the Belgium only be quiet and me for more right I will agent for any hand and if you say agent no wabo habi ana ho ya koso bit my then asent so na bibi at my then at my
When you are a tenant, you have responsibility. When you rent the place, you must keep the check. No activity.
Ana obetumi de okogina mmara no ama mmara ene wo adi. If wodi sika ana fie no ena wo so wa nti at that moment if you run aye na famu de nti wo a wo han dan no ebinum ko han obi dan a obuhu se enema a ensem fata no oye e wo dan no obetu afri dan no obekọ no na dan no aye basa dan no asei because onimi se enye on na de sika ye we dey fi say wo kọ no obi su ba betenam e basa na o ma e dan no bo aye den because obe invest again into the building. As tenant, you also have a responsibility, a role to play in maintaining the facility na wo behind no send the beya ense inti yensan ko ne san
Things that must take note. You say you keep you must not set. Some people rent the place and these are all some of the responsibilities of tenants. And then when it comes to the landlords, they also have a responsibility. The place must be tenantable. Is it tenantable? The place must be complete before you give it out rent. It means everything should be inside. There are cases that landlord will say, pay, I will fix water for you, I will fix WC for you. And then when you pay, sometimes it doesn't come and it becomes conflict. So make the place
inside the hall any ade bia e fat dan na wotimu no e waso di switches lower blade bi ubuna also make sure so what to be ashe na ayekama ama eda no ejina brane no ene if you running na no enya sumbi atnam nti it is the responsibility and as a responsibility so die no ewo if you run the all hand ni na eni ba akofo ho nti se wo akohan dan no ya wadwen se o me de my hand to them pibia na me ya emra no eden itia. So you don't have the right to do whatever you want as a tenant to a facility because you have rented it. The law of Ghana is against that. You have to do your part as a tenant by making sure you maintain the interior, because when you were coming to rent the house or the room, it was tenantable. It was in good shape. So you cannot destroy it or do illegality done in order to destroy somebody's facility. If you do that, emrano enutia. So let us go and listen to another landlord na enti de ono so eka.
Na ko mi to na so na fe ntuma ne ka se mi to si na se dan ntuma na so bi ba na se na bo so me 1.5 so fi se na ko den be so no ba dia mi ni problem aha mi ni aban because anya aban na to be cement ma me so bi so bi ba mo 2 years and
make sure they don't rent their houses or their rooms 6 months because it is their private. How come the government is determined how long they should give their rent to? And she thinks it is cheating. The government want to take undue advantage upon the landlords. And she said that, one, I may have a facility, and that facility, maybe I need money to complete other sections. Therefore, I have to charge amount that I can get money to be able to finish others. So, as an investor, why should the government be dictating for us? And she also raised concern that government goes around collecting a property rate in houses, but she don't see the benefit of it because the government doesn't pay them or buy cement for them. So she thought that alone is amount of extortion from the government. So let's go to the officer. The officer no so Ebeka view. What the next point of the officer of the rent department. So let's go and
Advance payment. That's rent advance. In a case where landlord found and meet the laws and that once it has passed, we cannot talk so much.
The landlord they when you give 1 year, you'll never have unless 2 years. It's more than that. There's a lot of that, and some people you have to rent yourself and rent this house. It's not easy. But the problem is so and how
Is when an order is given and then one or one does not comply with the order. That is when we represent the Republic and prosecute. We don't always go to court for judgment, and judgment is done here. When an order is disregarded, that's when we go to court. So it's not another way that we always go to court. No, we get solutions from the solution. That is when we go to court.
if you
Education has not done with people. It's different in homes. Sometimes they come here, the issue will be that so right process. Department go out there, even though they are doing very, very, very well when it comes to it. We go to the state, we organize meetings, the message that their responsibilities and that will know their responsibilities so that we can get this that we are all because I'm like I Ghana is to and reconcile. So the peace when we get reconciliation can be gotten, it will become conflict. And my office will come in. We want that have Ghana and some from courts, some from the traditional process, some from the police station. Then together we can say Ghana has a peaceful place to stay. And this is where we get it. So come to rent control, but this is free. You call our hotlines, we will guide you through some of these processes so that you don't have to fight yourself or your landlords.
bylaws. All right. This is the end of the show, and I believe that we've enjoyed the conversation, and I want you to keep on following us, and we will come for another nice episode of such issues which is affecting your daily life. I know now you understand the laws governing the renting. So if you are into rent business, you know what to do. If you're a tenant, you know your responsibilities, you know what the law requires you to do. If you're a landlord, you know what to do and what not to do. If you are an agent, you know today you're supposed not to collect more than 10%, it's 5%, and whatever, estate agencies and the rest. So I believe this show has been beneficial to you. You can give us a message, and whatever you want, any clarification you want, we will also assist you. This is KMTV. I am Megina Kwesi. Thank you for always following and subscribing to our channel. Share this piece to others. We will come away with a different, nice program. Thank you.